Hey everybody, my name is Ashley Collins and I'm a YA generalist at the main branch downtown. And today we're going to be continuing our series called I Read a Roadmap, where I walk you through 50 books, one representing every state of the country, and we take a little virtual road trip together. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Midwestern section of the country. And as always, all these books are in our catalog and you can place them on hold and pick them up at your favorite branch. And a bunch of them are available digitally too. So if that's more your speed, check out our digital catalogs as well. With that all being said, let's get started on our road trip and hopefully I can help you find some great reads to pick up next. So first up, we're going to go off to Illinois with I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erika L. Sanchez. So this one follows the concept of the perfect Mexican daughter, which is someone who doesn't go off to college too far, doesn't abandon their family, and never moves out of the house after high school. They stay with the family. Julie is pretty convinced she's never going to be the perfect Mexican daughter, but she kind of doesn't have to be because her sister Olga's got that covered. Until one day, Olga tragically dies in an accident at the busiest intersection in Chicago, and Julia is left to pick up the pieces of her family and figure out how to fill those gigantic shoes of being the perfect Mexican daughter. But as Julia starts to pick up the pieces of Olga's life, she discovers that Olga may not have been as perfect as everyone thought she was, and that she may have had some secrets. With the help of her best friend and her boyfriend, Julia goes on a quest to kind of find out the mystery of her sister and try to figure out what exactly being the perfect Mexican daughter is. This one is a really great kind of coming-of-age story, perfect for those of you getting ready to go off to college if you like reading about that time period. Also just a good mystery, contemporary mystery. Olga's story is very interesting, and as Julia unravels it, it is just really fascinating to watch and see. And it's really cool to explore this concept of a perfect Mexican daughter and see what kind of pressures that role is in a family. So definitely one to pick up. Next, we're going to go off to Indiana with a really cute book that I personally really loved reading. And that is Technically You Started It by Lana Wood Johnson. This one is actually written entirely in text messages, which I thought was really cool and made the reading experience really fast and interesting. But it's about this girl and a guy who start texting over conversation. So we follow Haley and Martin Nathaniel Monroe II as they start talking over text. But the problem is that there are two Martin Nathaniel Monroes II, believe it or not, and Haley thinks she's talking to the one she doesn't hate, but she's not actually sure. The two quickly become fast friends over text, and what started just as a question about a class assignment becomes a really all-consuming conversation that they keep going with constantly. Haley starts to find that Martin really understands her and doesn't mind her weird obsessions and unnatural kind of hobbies, and Martin feels like he's finally found somebody who understands him for who he really is. But Martin doesn't know that Haley doesn't know which Martin he is. And so they kind of have to try to see if they can save their meet cute before it becomes a really big problem and blows up into something else entirely. Like I said, this was a fun, light read, great romance, and it is LGBTQ characters. It's not a huge part of the plot, but if you're looking for a little representation from the Midwest, this is a great one to pick up for something light. Alright, next we're going to go out to Iowa with a really funny and fascinating book, and that is Grasshopper Jungle by Andrew Smith. This one is a really interesting story. It follows Austin as he interweaves his story of his Polish heritage and the story of how he and his best friend Robbie kind of set the world to doomsday by accidentally creating an army of unstoppable 6-foot-tall praying mantises, which is about the most interesting doomsday I think I've ever heard or read about personally. And at the same time, Austin's story is kind of filled with confusion because his hormones are raging crazy and his feelings are all over the place. Because even though he really loves his girlfriend Shan, he also really loves his best friend Robbie, which leads him to questioning his sexual orientation and kind of just trying to get his life together at the same time as saving the rest of the world. And it just kind of dives into saving the world, survival, and also the complexities of being a human. Like I said, it's a really funny, interesting book. It's one of those weird first-person narratives that totally are just engrossing and really fun to pick up. So if you're looking for a way to kind of get out of your head and get out of the state of the world right now, this is a great one to try out. Alright, next up we're going to go into Michigan with Drumroll Please by Lisa Jen Bigelow. This one is a middle grade book, and it is a perfect read for anyone who loves those like going away to camp stories, or if you were really into going away to camp, you might want to relive those memories as a kid from this book. So it follows Melly, who only joined the school band because her best friend Olivia wanted her to. But Melly finds that she really actually enjoys the band because for the first time in her life, she doesn't feel quiet as a mouse. So she and Olivia decide to go off to a two-week sleepaway camp called Camp Rockaway. And Melly's actually pretty excited until everything kind of starts to fall apart. Olivia ditches her at camp, her parents are getting divorced, and Melly's just pretty uncertain about kind of everything in her life, and she has to figure out how to turn all that chaos and noise into music. This is a really cool book. It's very moving. It's perfect for those of you who either are or were the kind of quiet, shy kids, and reading about that kind of coming into yourself, believing in yourself stage of life where you start to get a little more comfortable. Definitely recommend this one. It's a great one to read. Next up, we're going to go to Minnesota with a supernatural romance, and that is Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. So this one is a dual perspective about a girl named Grace and a boy named Sam. So for years, Grace has always seen these wolves at the back of her house, and there's one wolf in particular, a yellow-eyed wolf, who she kind of calls her wolf. And at the same time, Sam lives a double life. In the winter, he has the protection of his pack, and he is a wolf, but in the summer, for a few blissful months before the cold comes back, he gets to live as a human. One day, Sam and Grace cross paths as human, and the second Grace sees Sam and his yellow eyes, she knows that's her wolf. And as the two quickly start to fall in love, Sam has to fight off turning back into a wolf before winter starts, or he'll lose Grace and himself forever. This is a great supernatural romance. It still remains one of my favorites to this day. It's a really good trilogy as well. And just kind of a fun fact about this book, and you can't tell as much in this one, but all of the books are written in the font color of their cover. So this one's written in a navy, which looks kind of black, but the others are red and green, which, I don't know, it's just a little fun extra thing about the book that's really cool to pick up and see. Okay, next we're going to go to Missouri with Ziggy Stardust and Me by James Brandon. This one is a really cool story that uses Ziggy Stardust's influence on this character to show kind of how he inspires him and how he motivates him to live his life. So this book follows a boy named Jonathan who's completely alone. He's coping with being bullied, anxious, asthmatic, and an alcoholic father, and the loss of his mother. He does so by pretending he's friends with Ziggy Stardust and living in an alternate reality where Ziggy and his dead relatives, including his mother, kind of give him advice on how to live his life. In his real life, Jonathan just wants to be normal, and normal for him would be not being in love with boys. So just as he's getting ready to start conversion therapy, suddenly he meets Webb, who is very confidently gay and not ashamed to love boys, which shifts Jonathan's whole perspective. And even though he doesn't want to like Webb with his secrets and his brooding, Jonathan can't help himself, and he might finally find the ability to be proud of himself and free in his identity. Like I said, this is a really cool way to kind of explore that Ziggy Stardust character, see how it has influenced and motivated people. Also a good, powerful, moving romance, great coming of age for queer teens. Just altogether a wonderful book. Totally recommend picking this one up. Alright, next we're going to go to Nebraska with what is probably one of my favorite books of all time. A book I personally relate to a lot, so I couldn't not shout it out in that series. And that is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This one is about a girl who, as you may guess, is a big fangirl. She's very intensely involved in the Simon Snow fandom, which is kind of like your Harry Potter fandom in this alternate world. And Kath and her twin sister Ren were always really into it, and it even got them through their mother abandoning them and divorcing their father as kids. And another thing about Kath is she actually writes Simon Snow fanfic, and it's just become such a part of her life that she can't even think of life without it. So when Ren and her sister Kath finally go off to college, Ren decides she's going to abandon Kath and kind of leave her off on her own devices, and Kath doesn't really know what to do. So for the first time, Kath has to crawl out of her comfort zone and face a lot of new things that she's not really cool with adjusting with, like her surly roommate, the roommate's always around boyfriend, her cool fiction professor who unfortunately doesn't think fan fiction is a good thing, and a lot of other things on top of worrying about her dad. There's just a lot going on for Kath. But by the end of the book and by the end of her time, her first year in school, Kath will really start to adjust and figure out if she needs to move on from her fandom life or if she can have it all and be both. It's just a really beautiful book. I love this book to pieces. I'm going to be totally honest. As someone who's involved in a lot of fandoms, and for anyone that does like fandom out there, this is a great book to pick up. It's really relatable. The romance is really cute. I think the banter is very witty and fun to read. So it's just an all-around comfort book. Definitely a good one to pick up. Next, we're going to move into North Dakota with The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. So this one follows Alex Kraft, who knows how to kill someone, and she doesn't feel that bad about it. 3 years ago, after her older sister was murdered and the killer walks free, Alex has just evolved to the language of violence, because that's the only way she can deal with life and deal with other people. And she knows she can't really be trusted around other people as a result of that. And that includes Jack, the star athlete who wants to get close to Alex, but unfortunately knows something about how her sister Anna died, as well as PK, the preacher's kid with a defiant streak that befriends Alex. And unfortunately, Alex and PK and Jack, all of their lives kind of become entangled in a way that starts to solve Anna's mysterious death and kind of accumulates in their senior year of high school. Alex is just a really strong, powerful character to read about. This is a super interesting mystery, very complicated friendships and relationships going on here, but super powerful read. Mindy McGinnis writes really powerful books, and totally recommend picking this one up. Alright, with a little bit of a diversion from the contemporary realistic stuff, we're going to go into a alien sci-fi that takes place in Ohio, and that is The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. So this book, as kind of identified by the title, there have been 5 waves for humanity on Earth. So the first wave, only darkness remained. After the second wave, only the lucky escaped. By the third wave, only the unlucky survived. And by the fourth wave, the only way to survive was to trust nobody. So by the fifth wave, Cassie, who's out on the highway, has learned that the only way to survive is to be alone and stay away from others. And in fact, that's pretty easy to do because the last Earth survivors have been totally scattered across the world. And then you kind of have to stay away from the people Cassie calls them, who are beings that look like human but will kill everybody that stands in front of them. But unfortunately, Cassie can't stay alone for too long because she meets Evan, who may be the only person that can help her save her brother and herself, if she can trust him. This one is a really cool sci-fi trilogy. Cassie's a really cool, powerful character, and I personally think this is one of the more inventive, interesting sci-fis I have ever read in YA in quite a while. And Rick Yancey does some really good writing here, and it's just a fun story to take on and learn more about. Alright, now we're going to go to South Dakota, and for those of you that like Supernatural, this might be a book you want to pick up. So this one is called Strange Angels by Lily St. Croix, and it's about a girl who hunts supernatural creatures with her father because she has what her grandmother calls the touch. And so her name is Drew, and that touch comes in handy when she's going from town to town with her dad. But then one day her dad comes after her, and he's been turned into a zombie. And Drew knows that whoever or whatever turned him into a zombie is coming for her next. Even worse, even though she's super independent and she could totally handle all this by herself, these two guys vying for her affections will not let her do anything alone. And so Drew has to discover how special she really is before she comes fang to fang with whoever or whatever is coming after her. Like I said, so many supernatural vibes here, on the road, hunting creatures, family business, it's all there. And then of course you have a really good love triangle and just a really fun, interesting, supernatural thriller mystery story. So a great way, I think, to explore South Dakota, which I don't know that much about, and it's a fun way to kind of get a little more involved. Alright, and last but not least, we're going to go to Wisconsin with Need by Joelle Charbonneau. This one is kind of in one of my favorite niche genres, which is technology gone wrong sci-fi. And so this one is about teens in Wisconsin who find this new hot social networking site called that makes them answer one question. And the site asks them, what do you need? In the need site, it will refill your request with a small price to pay, seemingly really minor. And so everyone starts doing it, so why shouldn't you do it, is the basic concept. And the story follows Kaylee, who knows exactly what she needs. She needs a kidney for her sick brother. She doesn't exactly believe that the need site can help her out, but it doesn't hurt to try. Or at least that's what she thinks, until it turns out the need site is requiring a body count and an increasingly higher price for fulfilling people's needs. And Kaylee suddenly decides to tackle the mystery of the need site before it kind of destroys everyone around her. Like I said, this is exactly my kind of brand of sci-fi. I love things like this. It's kind of a social commentary at the same time as it is just a really fascinating mind think of sci-fi. So definitely a fun suspense thriller in sci-fi if you're looking for something like that. Alright, and with all that being said, that is all of our books for the Midwestern portion of this series. Next time I see you guys, we're going to be talking about the Southeast, focusing more on local areas. And with all that being said, I hope you found some good recs, and I hope you stick around for the next video. Bye!